Unfortunately, if you're not super into Zack Snyder or into Twitter disputes, you may not know this, but Uche, who for a long time was associated with Geeks and Gamers, and I want to be upfront, I have been consistently very critical of Geeks and Gamers. However, unlike others, I don't think it's wise to distort their record. And although I do think their contribution and presence has been mainly negative, there is a positive side and a positive legacy, and Uche is a part of that. Jeremy, who runs Geeks and Gamers, has been associated with Uche for a long time. Jeremy has been on record. He hated Zack Snyder's interpretation of Superman and his work on the DCU. He likes Snyder as a filmmaker and likes a lot of his films. Uche has been a much more consistent admirer of Zack Snyder. He knew Zack personally, he spoke with him, and he was a big part of the Snyder Cut movement. And Uche was a part of rehabilitating the Zack Snyder image, which I think had been, frankly, decimated through a lot of lying and a lot of grifting. A very positive influence on the Snyder Cut movement. He was an athlete, he was a commentator, he worked with Geeks and Gamers on their channel and his own channel. So overall, I had no issue with him. We had a few disputes. I'm not going to cover that up. I will comment on that when I finish the video. But overall, I felt Uche was a very sincere and good person. But he was very combative, from what I understand. He was very pro Black Lives Matter. I support BLM in principle, but I am very nervous about BLM as a movement. I do think the concept of increasing human rights for racial minorities is a good one. I am not black, but I am a person of color, so I am sensitive to some of these issues. I don't think it's responsible for me to ignore some of the frankly horrendous things have happened to racial minorities in America or frankly worldwide. Uche was probably more tough than me. He had no problem with stating his opinion and stating it firmly. And apparently he was also very pro-vaccine. I myself am more libertarian there. I think you should be given the choice, but he's been tagged as a leftist, as a communist. I don't know anything about that. I would say he is, yes, overall, you can fairly describe him as pro-black, pro-liberal, to some extent pro-statist. He did believe in some state regulation in the economy and society. A very political person, very admirable person, but very tough. And he did not suffer fools gladly and had no problem calling out people on Geeks and Gamers or elsewhere. And for those who don't know, and I was part of this minor drama, Geeks and Gamers was disaffiliated by Zack due to their controversies.
Film gob that Zack liked his 5 minutes of Campia being wrong. The film gob was like, huh? Yeah, I'm being serious. It's like, oh.
Uche was aware of this. He was told about this. He and Zack spoke about this. And he commented on the aftermath and said, listen, Warner Brothers basically held a gun to his head, said you have to disassociate from Geeks and Gamers. If you do not do that, there is no Snyder Cut. We will not release the film. Now, was Warner Brothers serious? We don't know. Zack was put in an incredibly bad situation where he had to do what he had to do. And I do respect people who understood that and thought, well, yeah, you had to do what you had to do, but we wish you worded it differently. I myself had no issue with what Zack said. Again, I am a racial minority. Zack had an Asian daughter who died tragically through suicide. And he's been accused of being a fascist and a racist and Nazi. I've been accused of being a racist, fascist, Nazi. So I don't feel Zack did anything wrong. If Jeremy did, I'm sorry. I had a little small role in that drama. And I think, for the most part, I have no regrets. But I would say, before closing, although I do like Uche, we did end on a negative note. Apparently, he was defending Robert Meyer Burnett, who, to me, was helping racists, unfortunately. Matt Jarbo, who I know of and have interacted positively with, basically spoke out and called him out. I supported Matt. Uche took Robert's side. And so we never, I think, directly attacked one another, but I basically made fun of the Robert defenders. Uche attacked the Robert haters. So our last official interaction was, unfortunately, on Twitter, fairly negative. I'm not going to lie about that. I do regret being so harsh. On Twitter, I can be very harsh. He could be very harsh. So probably in retrospect, we need to be a little bit better on our social media presence. And to give a lot to Jeremy beyond the Snyder Cut issue, he kept this a secret. Apparently, he did know about it, but his friends and family asked that it be kept a secret. I would also recommend a very good dedication video by Film Gob. I know Film Gob is very controversial. I understand that, but I think the dedication video was very
reporter.
good. I'm using elements of it, hopefully respectfully and in spirit of that video, but I will not distort Film Gob or myself or Uche. We were very partisan. We were very tough. If you consider us toxic, man, baby, fascist idiots, I respect that. I'm not going to erase any comments. I just hope we take a moment of silence and admire the more good than bad in the Snyder Cut movement. There's definitely bad. Perhaps Uche contributed to that. Perhaps I contributed to that. Regretfully, Uche might have had some really good commentaries with Rebel Moon coming up, and apparently he was planning big things for his channel. He was going to get some big guests on. All I can say is let's honor his memory. And even if you disagree with his Twitter opinions, try to understand his POV. He's just a very principled person. R.I.P. Uche. Rest in peace.